Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are here once again for some NFL picks live on YouTube. And this is lucky week 17, just 2 weeks left in the NFL regular season. Very exciting times. We're going to go ahead and grab this video link here. We're going to toss it up on Twitter and let the good folks know that we are underway. Boom, boom. And we're going to do that. And we're going to go NFL Week 17. Stream is live. Bang. There we go. Now the Twitter folks know that we are here. And I have our recording all ready to roll. And we're going to open this as well. Good, great, and wonderful. Let's see. Ooh. Chad's got some good news for us in the chat. Raining in Regina. Well, that's not great news. We got it all, baby. Go Eagles, go. Went 12 of 16 last week. That is fantastic. Well done, Chad. All right. We are going to get the show started here in... Oh, my drinks are in the wrong... I'm not comfortable when my drinks aren't in the right position. The prima donna YouTuber that I am. There we go. Gonna get started in 5, 4, 3. What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, fueled as always by the incredible folks at NerdTees, and welcome to week 17 of my weekly NFL football pick show for the 2022 NFL regular season and postseason. Just 2 weeks left until the end of the 2022 regular season, and then we get into playoffs, baby. Super wild card weekend is just around the corner. Let's talk about how we did in week 16. And honestly, week 16, it's not going to be what you'd call an unqualified success, but I'm certainly going to call week 16 a success around these parts, especially straight up. Went 11-5 picking the games straight up last week. Always good, as I mentioned, when you get into double digits. Now 140, 98, and 2 on the season, and well on pace to beat my straight up record of last season. I believe I had 154 correct last season. I can go just under 500 in these remaining 2 weeks and still at least match that, if not surpass it. So I'm feeling real good that we're going to do much better than that this year overall. Against the spread, 9-7, and as I mentioned in the description of this live stream right now, hey, that's basically 3 weeks in a row, I believe, where against the spread, or at least 3 of the last 4 weeks, where against the spread, we've had some positive results. We were 9-7 this week, 9-6-1 last week. Did take a little dive of 6-7 the week before that, but the week before that we were 9-6. So I feel like I'm moving in the right direction here against the spread. 3 games above 500 at 118, 115, and 7. I was slightly underwater on the totals last week at 7 and 9. So that does have me 8 full games under 500 on the totals this year at 116 and 124. Now, the platinum, gold, silver, and bronze picks, I usually like to do a little bit better than this. I was 7-5, so it is above 500. Usually I like to do a bit better than that, but we will take what we can get. Bronze pick, silver pick, and gold pick were all 2-1 last week. That moves their respective records to 26, 20, and 2, 31 and 17, and 25, 22, and 1 on the season. So the bronze pick, I had the Niners over the Commanders, and the Bengals did cover against the spread, but the Saints and Browns failed to go over their point total. Silver pick, I had Baltimore over the Falcons, and the Niners covered against the spread, but Denver and the Rams failed to stay under their point total. And in the gold pick, I had the Bucks over the Cardinals. Atlanta failed to cover against the spread, but the Raiders and Steelers did stay under their point total. That, of course, only leaves the platinum pick, where sadly I was only 1-2 last week. That puts the record in the platinum pick to 26, 21, and 1 on the season. Now, in the platinum pick, Buffalo did beat the Chicago Bears, but Seattle failed to cover plus 10 against the spread, and the Bills and Bears failed to stay under their point total. So, mixed bag, 7-5. We'll certainly take it. Certainly could have done a lot worse. In the Bridgewater's finest straight up pick'em pool, I moved up a spot into 12th place out of 36 with 1,245 out of 1,930 possible confidence points, which means this week we'll cross the 2,000 point plateau in available points on what was been available on the season. I have 64.5% with the confidence points. I'd like to be higher than that, but I'm not going to poo-poo it because 64.5 is a solid performance. And I brought in 106 of 136 possible confidence points last week, a clip of just under 78%. Shout out to our Week 16 winner, Arizona won. At least Arizona has to win something this year. Arizona won, goes 12-4 straight up last week, 117 out of 136. That is good for exactly 86% of available confidence points on the week. Anthony Simone remains our overall leader, I believe, by like a single point over Team Power. 156, 82, and 2 straight up on the season with 1,320 possible confidence points, a clip of just under 68.5%. So, because this is the week of most fantasy football championships, if your fantasy league does not complete its season in the second to last week of the year, you really got to sit down and have a conversation with your commish, or you got to leave that league entirely because, my God, who's still playing fantasy football in the final week of the season? Daily fantasy sports, that's fine, but like a year-long fantasy football league, no chance. Now, we're in Fantasy Corner here, which is presented by the Dynasty Trade Calculator. I do not, unfortunately, have good news. I am now donezo in all of my fantasy football leagues this year. I was in the second round, the semifinals in one league. It's not a long-term keeper or dynasty. It's just a redraft league. Well, actually, technically, I guess it's a keeper because I think you keep two. But unfortunately, I lost the semifinal matchup in that one. So I am out of all my fantasy leagues. However, that does not mean that it is too early to start thinking about next year, because especially if you are a dynasty keeper or long-term fantasy football manager, you know the game never ends. And what you need to do is hop on the Dynasty Trade Calculator. My affiliate link is down below. And for as little as $3, you can gain access to one of the absolute best assets available to you in terms of Dynasty Keeper and long-term fantasy football, trade evaluations, player rankings, podcasts, a ton of great experts on that site, all the insight that you are going to need to dominate your Dynasty leagues in 2023 and beyond. Go ahead and click on my affiliate link and get in on the Dynasty Trade Calculator. And I'll take this opportunity now, as I always do, to remind you that if you go to the description of this live stream, of the VOD, of the podcast episode, however you interact with this show, you're going to find all of my results from last week, all of my straight up against the spread and over under plays for week 17 in the NFL in 2022. You're going to find information on joining the Bridgewater's Finest Pick'em Pool, which, reminder, does go through the playoffs. So if you're in that pool, stick around because it's definitely not over yet. You can find information on joining the NFL YouTube Prognosticators Facebook page, and you can find information on my great friends and sponsors at Nerd Tees. Sorry about that. So, since so weird. Sorry, I have something over here making a weird noise. I don't think it's being picked up, so I think we're okay. So, since we had a successful week last week, why change it up? We're using the same mug, and you know what? We're running back the same blend. Nerdtees.ca is where you need to go to find this bad boy. Blueberry tea, a delicious, delicious loose leaf tea blend. It's not too bad on the caffeine. It shouldn't keep me up all night. It's delicious, and you can find that and dozens of other great tea or coffee options, as well as your hot drink accessories. You can find all of that on nerdteas.ca. What you're going to want to do is use my promo code, which is BWFinest. That is going to save you 15% at checkout. You're going to get free shipping in Canada on every order over $100, which is excellent value with the shipping rates these days. And if you're one of my viewers and listeners in the United States, you're going to get a great conversion rate on the US dollar, as you typically do. It might be blueberry, which is right here. It might be one of the dozens of other great options, but whatever it is, find yourself something to love, or find someone you love something to love. You can do it on nerdteas.ca with the promo code BWFinest. we got some good stuff in the chat. Keebs is joining us yet again. These chats are fun. I'm in. Awesome, Keebs. Glad to have you here. Glad my Steelers play claim came through. Absolutely. I was happy to be following you along on that one. Chad chimes in, says, "Oh my God, I smell cheese at the door. Do we let Green Bay in?" Oh my goodness. Look, I'm telling you, don't let Green Bay sneak into the playoffs. Now, I mean, the Giants have like 412 different ways that they can make the playoffs by what happens this week. So, I mean, that's probably one of the playoff spots wrapped up. But, oh, buddy, if you let the Packers sneak into the playoffs, it's going to be all kinds of trouble. I understand that they're going to have to go to San Francisco probably as the number 2 seed in the NFC. Just get in. Just get in and let's see what happens. I think they're going to do it. I really do. I feel it in my heart. But we're going to talk about that as we delve in here to the Week 17 picks. And just as we did last week, I want to take a minute or two and talk about the playoff scenarios that are in play this week, like what teams can clinch, what teams are playing for, etc., etc. So there's more than there were last week, but we're going to try to fire through these before we get to the picks. So on the AFC side of things, Buffalo can lock up the number 1 seed in the AFC with a win as well as a loss by the Kansas City Chiefs. The Bengals can wrap up the AFC North if they win and Baltimore loses or ties, or if Cincinnati ties their game and Baltimore loses outright. If either of those two things happen, boom, the Bengals win the AFC North. And for the Miami Dolphins, who look like they might be playing without their starting quarterback this week, they make the playoffs if they win and the Jets lose or tie, or Miami ties, the Jets lose, and the Steelers either lose or tie. So there are a couple of different scenarios there where the Dolphins could potentially clinch an AFC playoff spot. Now, over in the NFC, I wasn't joking about the Giants. The Giants literally have 7 different scenarios that could play out this week that result in them clinching a playoff spot. It's crazy. Literally 7 different scenarios. If any of those 7 scenarios hit, then the Giants are going to the postseason. I won't go through every single one of them, but literally they've got a baker's half dozen worth of things that could happen this week. For the Eagles, they will clinch the NFC East if they win or tie, or if Dallas loses or ties. So they got a couple of different ways that they can clinch their division. The Bucks, if they win, very simple for them. They win their game, they win the division, they're going to the playoffs. And for the Washington Commanders, they can clinch a playoff spot this week conceivably, but it's about a 4-leg parlay that has to hit, which includes they win, 3 other teams lose, or something like that. It's about a 4-pick parlay that all has to hit, but it could conceivably hit, and the Commanders could clinch a playoff spot. So plenty is at stake here in Week 17. Let's talk about these games. We're going to kick things off in Tennessee, where the Titans, who are reeling on a 5-game losing streak, including, we go back to last week, a home loss. Barry Horowitzing myself. I called the Houston Texans going to Tennessee and beating the Titans last week. And wouldn't you know who won the pony? They go in and they do exactly that. Houston picks up a massive win, and the Titans are in free fall. So they are losers of 5 straight games, and now they got to play host to a Dallas Cowboys team who does still have stuff to play for. Dallas could still conceivably win the division. Dallas is still in that hunt there at 10 wins in terms of, getting the number 1 overall seed in the NFC. These are things that are still mathematically possible for this Cowboys team. They still have plenty to play for, even though they have clinched a playoff spot. But boy, the Titans at 7 wins, like, go back 6 weeks, go back 7 weeks, 8 weeks. This shouldn't even be a conversation about who's going to win this division. But now it is, because now it looks like it's going to be Jacksonville. Jacksonville definitely has the inside track here to winning this division and going to the playoffs. And it's crazy to think about that. If you go back 6 weeks, I wonder how much juice you would have had to lay on the Titans winning the AFC South like 6 weeks ago. If somebody wants to go, like Keebs, I know you're big on stuff like this. If somebody wants to go dig in to the historical futures numbers, if you have access to stuff like that, I want to know 8 weeks ago, how much juice would you have had to lay on the Titans winning that division? I'm just curious. If somebody wants to dig into that, it doesn't have to be Keebs, but if somebody can dig into that, if you got access to those numbers, I would be tremendously interested in that information. So obviously I'm on the Cowboys here because the Titans are in absolute free fall. Half of their roster seems to be on their injured list. I don't know who's playing quarterback. I don't know who's catching the ball. Basically, I know that Derrick Henry is a thing. And that's about the only thing that you know about the Titans right now. And I think even Keith Bailey, my noted Titans insider, Keith Bailey, is kind of at his wit's end with this team. And like, he's talking about like, geez, talking to other teams and like, oh, put this team out of their misery and what have you. So he may have thrown his hands up about the whole thing. Got to be on the Cowboys here, even though the game's in Tennessee. Let's take Dallas to beat the Titans, and let's just go ahead and make that my gold pick this week. Dallas over Tennessee. But against the spread, Tennessee is taking 10.5 points at home against Dallas. Dallas doesn't need to blow Tennessee out. They just want to beat them. And this is still a Titans team that for the first half of this year was pretty good. And just as such a heavy underdog here, I've got to take those points. Double digits. I know Kansas City actually covered a double-digit spread last week, but other than that, it does not happen a ton this season. So I'm actually going to hold my nose here a little bit, and I'm going to take those 10.5 points with the Tennessee Titans. I'm actually going to make that my silver pick against the spread this week. Yeah, it smells a little funky, but man, 10.5 points, double-digit spreads, there's just something about them. So I'm going to take that plus 10.5 on Tennessee, and that's my silver pick against the spread this week. Total in this game is set at 40.5 points. I'm just not, for whatever reason, I'm not expecting a blowout, so I'm not expecting a high-scoring game either. I don't know if weather will have any impact on this game or not, but I just don't see a high-scoring game here with a total of 40.5. Clearly, Vegas doesn't either. I'm going to take the under on this because I think this is a really realistic score for this game. I'm going to go 23-14 in favor of the Cowboys. So Dallas wins, Tennessee covers the plus 10.5, and give me the under on the points. Keebs says Packs sneak in. Not a boy, Keebs. So I guess I'm taking the Pack this week. Right on, right on. Good call on the Texans, Justin. Martin, thank you so much. Keebs also says Jags winning that division now. Peterson, coach of the year. Who knew that all it took was not Urban Meyer? for that team to find some success. And of course, like, look, they made moves. Trevor Lawrence has come into his own. Things have fallen well into place. Travis Etienne is one of the emerging superstars in this league at running back. So things have certainly fallen in the Jags' favor, but it's certainly starting to look like the Jags are going to be the kings of the AFC South. Let's go to a game that has absolutely no meaning except on draft night, and that is the Arizona Cardinals in Atlanta taking on the Falcons. Falcons losers of 4 straight games, Arizona losers of 5. Now, Atlanta does have the benefit of something of a long week, having played on Saturday last week, so they do have that extra day of rest. Again, both of these teams eliminated from playoff contention. The Cardinals did make some news earlier today, I believe it was, with JJ Watt announcing that he's played his final home game and this will be the end of his career, is the end of this season. JJ Watt, one of only 3 players in NFL history, I believe, to win Defensive Player of the Year 3 times. Like the guy was riddled with injuries, but an absolute stud. At his best, almost nobody could play the game like JJ Watt could. So that is a career well done, and I will salute to that for JJ Watt. So this will be his last couple games as a pro. This was one of the tougher games for me because like neither one of these teams are particularly good. So what I did in this game, and it's what I did in a couple of the games this week, I leaned on the rest advantage. Atlanta's got the rest advantage. They're at home. I'm going to give it to the Falcons. Let's take Atlanta at home to get the win over Arizona. On the line, however, you got to buy the extra hook. Atlanta's favored by 3.5 points. I don't think they deserve to be favored by 3.5 points over basically anyone in this league. So I'm going to take the points with Arizona. I insulate myself against the upset. I just think it's the right play to make against the spread. So I'm going to take the plus 3.5 on the Arizona Cardinals. Total in this game is set at 40.5. You don't have to have a super high scoring game in order for this to make it just barely over, which is what I think happens in this one. I'm going to take over 40.5 points in Arizona, Atlanta. There are offensive playmakers on both sides here. Tyler Allgeier is really starting to come into his own at running back for Atlanta. He was a sneaky good dynasty pickup, I think, for me towards the end of the season. Let's go 23-21 in favor of the Falcons. Atlanta wins. Arizona covers against the spread. Give me the over on the points. Let's go to Detroit now for a division matchup of the vaunted NFC North. That's the Detroit Lions playing host to the Chicago Bears. Now, Chicago, of course, eliminated from playoff contention. They were eliminated a few weeks ago. Losers of 8 consecutive games. Now officially the coldest team in the entirety of the NFL after Houston's victory last week, which again, your boy called. So Chicago, losers of 8 straight, eliminated from playoff contention. They got a really good quarterback. What else do they have? I'll tell you what the Detroit Lions have. They have 7 wins on the season. They have life in the NFC playoff picture. They're not eliminated yet. I think a long string of things would have to happen for them in order to get in. However, they are still alive. They're playing for their playoff lives, what little hope they may have. And this is a team that offensively has proved almost all the doubters wrong this year. The defense has still had those moments of like, oh boy, you really need to address that in the offseason. They certainly will, but I have no questions about this offense, certainly when they're playing the game at home. I really like the Detroit Lions this week. Let's grab Detroit at home to pick up a big divisional win over the Chicago Bears. So much so that Detroit over Chicago is actually going to be my silver pick straight up this week. Yes, it's a division game, but it's my silver pick straight up. Detroit over Chicago. On the line, the Lions are laying. Ooh, a lot of too many L's, pal. The Lions are laying minus 5.5 points here as the home favorite. I'm going to go ahead and lay those points. This Bears defense has like completely caved in on itself. I really thought the plus 8.5 on Chicago was a strong play last week. Boy, was I proven wrong. They're only taking 5.5 here. It's a much smaller margin. this Detroit offense is exceptional in their home building. So I think they cover those points. Let's lay the -5.5 on Detroit. Total in the game set at 52.5 points, and this was the total layup for me this week. Over, layup, slam dunk over. I think they've gone over almost every home game this year, maybe with the exception of one or maybe two, but this offense definitely scores points. So let's grab the over here, over 52.5. And I like that so much that it's in my platinum pick on the totals this week. Detroit and Chicago over 52.5 points, my platinum pick on the totals. Let's go 34-24 in favor of the Lions. Detroit wins, Detroit covers. Give me the over on the points. Keebs is in the chat and seems to agree with me. Lions coming off that bad road loss. I like a bounce back. Good stuff, Keebs. I like it. I'll roll with you on that one. Speaking of division matchups, let's go to Kansas City and have another one. The Denver Broncos are in Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. And obviously, you could not have two more polar opposite experiences in the 2022 NFL season. You've got the Denver Broncos, who are 4-11, firmly outside the playoff picture. They don't have a first round pick. Nothing is going right for Denver this year. And they came into the season with oh so much promise, a new head coach, and they get to do that twice because now they have another new head coach because they fired Nathaniel Hackett literally just yesterday, I think it was, because I was sitting waiting for a movie to start and I just see across the ticker Nathaniel Hackett fired. And I'm like, okay, I got to make a YouTube short about this, which I did. They didn't monetize it because I apparently used a song that you can't use. That's okay. We fixed that. But yeah, Nathaniel Hackett is out. Look, they had a lot of injury situations this season. Everybody has adversity. Everybody has injuries that happen. It's part of the job. So I'm not going to say that like I fully disagree with them firing him, but I also don't fully agree with them firing him. I don't really know where I sit on it. Like 15 games is probably not enough time to really evaluate what you have in a coach. What I will say is I think the way that Nathaniel Hackett coaches football games limited Russell Wilson. And if you're going to trade for Russell Wilson and give up a ton of assets for Russell Wilson, you can't coach in a way that limits him. He's clearly the face of your franchise, for better or for worse. So you have to maximize Russell Wilson in every single conceivable way. Nathaniel Hackett's scheme did not do that. So it's probably good that they got rid of him when they did. But again, a guy lost his job. I can't exactly celebrate in the streets about that. We'll have to see. I really don't know one way or the other whether this winds up being a positive or not. The Kansas City Chiefs have already clinched the division. They're well clinched in a playoff spot. They're well in the competition for the number one seed in the AFC. They're also winners of 3 straight games, and coming into this game on the long week, Kansas City wins. Like there's no reason for them to not win this game, and it's a game that if they lost, I would be very concerned for their playoff aspirations. If you take an opponent like this lightly and you lose a game like this, you give away all that momentum that you've had over the last 3 games, a month, whatever. You give all that momentum away. I don't like your odds going into the postseason. So Kansas City has to come up with a pretty strong win here. I like the Chiefs over Denver as my platinum pick straight up this week. Chad just pointed out in the chat, KC has a 14-game win streak against them, which is fantastic. So we're just going to go ahead and put that user in a timeout, which is great. Sorry about that, folks. Once again, the perils of live streaming. I guess if I do this again this year, I really need to invest in moderators. So that's definitely something I'm going to have to look into. In any case, really like the Kansas City Chiefs here. I am going against the whole coaching change thing because that's a thing. When a coach gets fired, it's a thing that their team wins the next game. It's happened, I think, at least once this year, if not twice. So it's a thing that happens. So I am going against that. However, I am going to give them slight credit that I am going to take them against the spread, because the spread is Kansas City laying minus 13.5. Which again, yes, they covered minus 10 last week against Seattle. I get that. But I've said it and I meant it, and the numbers bear it out. The Chiefs are not a team that frequently and consistently performs well against the spread and covers these big numbers. They just don't. So 13.5 points in a division game, no thank you. The Denver Broncos plus 13.5, that's what I like. So we're going to go ahead and grab the plus 13.5. And in fact, this would be in my top 4 if I didn't like the total play for this game even better. And again, I said from the beginning of the year, I was not going to take one game where I had all 3 of them in the top 4 picks. So in lieu of taking plus 13.5 in the platinum, gold, silver, and bronze, what I am going to take is under 44.5 points in that game as my one of my top 4 picks on the totals. I'm actually going to make that my gold pick on the totals this week. Kansas City and Denver under 44.5 points. I think that Broncos defense comes to play. I don't think Kansas City blows them out. I think Denver might even just score a few extra points, which keep the game a little bit closer, but still, I don't like this thing to be a blowout. I don't like it to be high scoring. So under 44.5 points, my gold pick on the totals this week. And we are going to go, let's go 24-14. That's still a 10-point win. It just doesn't cover minus 13.5 against the spread, and it stays under on the point total. That's the way we're going. 24-14, Kansas City. Chiefs win. Broncos cover. Give me the under on the points. Chad just threw out a great stat there. The Chiefs are on a 14-game winning streak against the Broncos, which is nuts for division rivals. That's crazy. It's not even a rivalry. That's just like, here's this team that we always beat. We get to play them twice every year. It's like there's 2 of our wins. Where are we going to get the rest of them? It's the 7 full seasons worth of head-to-head games. Isn't that so? They haven't beaten them since the Broncos won the Super Bowl. Since like the year after they won the Super Bowl, the Broncos have not beaten the Chiefs. That's crazy. Another division matchup. The Miami Dolphins are in New England to take on the Patriots. And this is where we first talk about an injury situation, because it's one of the predominant storylines in the NFL right now, which is Tua Tagovailoa going back into concussion protocol for at least the second time this season, if not the third. And here's the story that came from the Miami coaching staff, which if you're looking at like chopping block situations, look at this Miami coaching staff, because look at how bad they have handled their golden goose. Look at how bad they've handled their franchise quarterback and one of his most important assets, which is what's inside of his head. So Tua takes a hit again. It didn't even look like a massive one, but he took a hit where he wound up on his back and his head hit the turf again. And the whole second half, he was a different quarterback. And now what they're saying is, oh, he suffered a head injury. He's going back into concussion protocol. You let him play the second half of the game. After which he threw 3 interceptions and cost them the game. It is wild. What? Look, let's do the thing you're not supposed to do. Let's look at the player like an asset. All right? Let's look at the player like a laptop computer. All right? Let's say you just got this new laptop. Look, I'm a perfect example of this. I got a new laptop earlier this year. All right? It's in front of me. I'm literally streaming on it right now. It works great. Is it the best laptop out there? No, but I'd say it's probably solid top 10 that was available to me at the time. Pretty darn good laptop. It would be like I frisbee it out my window every couple of days. And then I wonder why occasionally it doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense. If you think he has a sniffle, pull him out of the game. He's the future of your franchise. He's the present and the future. It makes no sense. It's wildly unethical. And it's just stupid asset management. I'm glad Tua's in protocol. I hope he doesn't play the rest of the season. I hope they sit him. And if Miami gets into the playoffs, cool. Maybe he can play then. I do not want to see Tua on a football field before Super Wildcard Weekend. Period. At the absolute earliest. End of rant. So, the Miami Dolphins are an 8-win team. The New England Patriots are a 7-win team. Both of these teams are still vying for a playoff spot in the AFC, one of those wild card spots in the AFC. But neither one of them appears like they want to win it. Miami has lost 4 games in a row. Patriots have lost back-to-back. Somebody's got to win it. One of these teams, it feels like, has to get there, because it doesn't seem like the Jets want to either. But this is a tough one. I was leaning Miami in this before the Tua news came out. Now, Miami has a competent backup quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater, but he's been hurt this year too. So if it's not him, I think they have like a 5th or 6th round rookie behind him as the third stringer. So not knowing who's going to play quarterback for Miami this weekend, I have to take the Patriots. The Patriots went from 1-point dogs at home in this matchup to now 2.5-point favorites. So clearly people know that Tua is not playing this week, and whether it's been officially announced or not. So we're going to go ahead and take the Patriots here. Let's take New England to get their 8th win of the season. They also have a rest advantage in this game. They're on the long week, having played on Saturday. So we're going to go ahead and grab the Patriots to beat Miami. On the line, New England is favored by 2.5 points. I'm going to lay the 2.5 because it's a relatively small price to pay. They get to play a backup quarterback. Bill Belichick's going to be able to beat a backup quarterback no matter how much of a veteran presence they are. So let's go ahead and lay the 2.5. Total in the game set at 42.5 points. I think this is a pretty darn good number, but it just feels like one of those things that the last scoring play of the game sends the point total over. So we're going to go over 42.5 points in New England. Miami, Teddy Bridgewater, more than capable of scoring points in this league. So let's go 26-21 in favor of the Patriots. New England wins, New England covers, and give me the over on the points. And keep Tua on the damn bench. Chad brings up a great point. Who's going to be resting good players if a game doesn't matter? Watch that too. You could definitely start to see some of that this week. If it's a team that is in contention to get one of those 2 first-round buys, it's probably too early for that. Not only because you're still competing for that, but now you're talking about players potentially not playing for like 3 weeks. You got to worry about rust coming into play there. But there are certainly some instances where there's a team like the Chargers who I don't think are going to be, they can't really improve their playoff stock. So you could see them start resting players. I'd be surprised maybe if Herbert plays next week, what have you. These things definitely come into play. Next up, the Indianapolis Colts are in New York to take on the Giants. I hit New York with a little bit of a New York accent on that. I like that. Colts are losers of 5 straight games, firmly outside of the playoff picture in the AFC. They're also coming into this game on the short week, having just played last night in a bad loss. What was it, 20-3? Like just bad loss to the Chargers. Speaking of the Chargers. Meanwhile, you got the Giants, who are an 8-win team, have the long week, the benefit of the long week here. So you have a very strong rest advantage in this game in favor of the New York Giants. Again, they're an 8-win football team. They basically control their own destiny as far as whether or not they win one of those NFC playoff spots. Them winning this week is certainly one of those 7 potential outcomes that will result in them clinching a playoff spot. So I'm torn in this game because if they do that, that's one fewer playoff spot for the Green Bay Packers. How much of a homer do I want to be? To show, excuse me, to show any faith right now in the Indianapolis Colts seems very, very foolhardy. So like I did last week, I'm going to go ahead and make an edit right here live on the show because I got indulgent and I took the Colts as an upset play here, but especially with the big rest advantage, I just don't think it's reasonable to do it. There's reasonable upset picks and then there's insanity. That feels like insanity to me. So we're going to go ahead and grab the New York Giants to get the win in New York, punch their ticket to the postseason. Giants beat the Indianapolis Colts. Against the spread, the Giants are laying 5.5 points here as a home favorite. It seems like it's still one way or the other. It seems like a big number of points to lay, doesn't it? Like on a Giants team that isn't one of the stronger teams in football. Like it feels like the Giants are going to get in, at least in part due to weakness of teams around them. So for them to lay 5.5 points against almost anybody in the NFL seems tough for me. So I think we're going to have to go ahead and hedge on that one. It does insulate us against a pretty darn big upset. Chad now does point out Indy's got a 4-game win streak against the Giants, but I feel like those Indy teams were better than the one that we've seen on the field this year. So I am going to take the Giants to win, but I am going to hedge my bets, and I am going to take the plus 5.5 on the Indianapolis Colts because I just feels like a lot of points to lay on the Giants. The Giants are a good ATS team this year, but the majority of that is as betting underdogs. So we'll take the 5.5 on the Colts. Total in the game set at 39.5 points. I feel really good about the under on this play, so much so that Colts Giants under is my silver pick against the spread this week. Colts Giants under 39.5, my silver pick on the totals, not against the spread, on the totals. And we're going to go with one of my favorite scores, 17-16 in favor of the New York Giants. Giants win. Colts cover plus 5.5 against the spread. I'll take the under on the points, and the New York Giants punch their ticket to the postseason. Let's see here. All the Colts got a big chunk of coal for Christmas when they played against the Chargers last night. Yeah, boy, what an awful performance. Just top to bottom. Martin, Justin, I felt sorry for you because you were one of the few to take the Colts versus the Chargers last night. You would have taken Indy 3 straight weeks if you would have kept them. Ooh, those are the kind of stats, Martin, that I'm just like, I'm so glad you bring them up. But then it's like when you sit back and look at the big picture, it's like, oh boy, 3 weeks in a row? Really, man? Come on. Keebs chips in that the Giants Lions money line parlay is plus 100. I like some plus money there. That seems good. I'll take that. All right. The New Orleans Saints travel to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles this week. The Eagles have, of course, punched their ticket to the postseason, the best record in the NFL. The New Orleans Saints, a 6-win football team, still mathematically alive in the playoff race by virtue of the weak division that they play in. They are winners of 2 straight. However, they are coming into the game on the tail end of back-to-back road games, which actually I meant to mention Denver is doing that as well. Denver's on the tail end of back-to-back roadies. New Orleans is on the tail end of back-to-back roadies. And last week, those teams who are on the tail end of back-to-back road games got eviscerated. They covered the spread a couple of times, but I think they might have been like 1-4 straight up or 1-5 straight up. Like they were not good at all last week. How many were there? Just take a quick look. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm pretty sure they were 1-4 straight up last week. So not exactly great results for them. For the Eagles, Andrew points it out in the chat. Jalen Hurts' status still in question. I think based on their loss last week, I think it's more likely now that you will see Jalen Hurts at some point before the end of the season. Genuinely would not be shocked if it was this week, even if it's only like on a snap count where we might see Hurts in for a couple of series and then Minshew comes in and then Hurts comes in for a couple of series. What we did see last week is even in a losing effort, Gardner Minshew can run this offense, man. Gardner Minshew can put up points. He had a good football game. He did throw 2 interceptions, but he had a good game. What was it? 2 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown as well. So he can run this offense. So, excuse me. So whether it's Hurts or it's Gardner Minshew, I don't feel bad for the offensive floor of the Philadelphia Eagles. I think this team can score points one way or the other. They're against a team in New Orleans that struggles to score points. I think we got to go ahead and grab the Eagles in this one fairly comfortably, despite the fact that they have won back-to-back games, has New Orleans, but we're going to go ahead and grab the Eagles here to get the win. On the line, Philadelphia is laying 7 points here as a home favorite. I think Vegas is kind of tipping the hat about who might play quarterback this week, but I'm going to lay the points here on the Eagles. I think the Eagles should be able to win this game easily by double digits, and I like comfortably by double digits. So we're going to go ahead and lay the 7 points, like laying -7 on one of the best teams in football. Shouldn't be any problem for you at all. And in fact, I like that so much. Eagles -7 is my platinum pick against the spread this week. Philadelphia laying -7 at home against the Saints, my platinum pick against the spread. Total in the game set at 43.5 points. This is a pretty darn good total. I think it's going to be close. Give me the over in this one because I'm not worried about the offensive floor of the Philadelphia Eagles in this game. So we're going to go ahead and grab the over here on a very beatable number. Over 43.5 points in Philly, New Orleans. Let's go 31-14 Eagles. No matter who the quarterback is, I think they get into the 30s. Saints are going to do what they do. It's not going to be much. Philly with a very comfortable win, covering -7, and give me the over. Andrew says, I'd rub it in with my boss if the Eagles lose this week. He did not show up to work after the Dallas loss. Wow. That's like, you got to be dyed in the wool, man. Like you got to be in there. I've gone to work a lot of times with a couple of football fans who work with me with a lot of Packers losses early in the year, but you got to be real in there to not show up to work. But then again, it's the Cowboys. It's basically their hate week. So I guess I get it. Wow, we're almost at 50 minutes. Let's we can speed this up a little bit. The Carolina Panthers in Tampa Bay to take on the Bucks. Like I mentioned, the Bucks a 7-win team. If they win, they clinch the division. They guarantee themselves 8 wins, I guess, Again, this is the division that nobody wants to win, but somebody ultimately has to. Carolina comes into this thing with 6 wins, obviously still very alive in this division. They also come into the game with the rest advantage, having played on Saturday. They got a little bit of extra rest. They've performed rather well this year as betting underdogs. I actually like the upset here. I have no faith. My amount of faith in the Tampa Bay Bucks is virtually nothing. I don't think this is a good football team. I don't think any team in that division is a good football team. And the Bucks are obviously light years behind where they were a couple of years ago. Light years behind. So I don't have faith. I don't really have faith in the quarterback. If I'm being perfectly honest, yes, he's engineered some very fancy game-winning drives, and that's great. And maybe he has turned a professional corner. Whereas we're getting closer to the playoff games. Hey, look, all of a sudden, bang, there's Tom Brady again. But they got to get there first. And I don't know. I feel something about this Panthers team, especially on the road this year, especially as betting underdogs. I'm going to take the Carolina Panthers to win this game outright. I like Carolina in Tampa Bay to upset the Bucs and keep those waters as muddy as possible in the NFC South. So obviously the Bucs, where they're laying -3 here against the spread. I like Carolina to win, so I definitely like the Panthers plus the 3 points, and I like that so much that Carolina +3 actually my bronze pick against the spread this week. I feel real confident about that. I liked it more when it was 3.5. It was 3.5, I think, even earlier this morning. It was still 3.5 on a lot of books. If you can get it at 3.5, that's great. I still like it +3 because I'm taking them to win the game outright. Total in the game set at 39.5 points. Pretty good number. I'm going to lean under on this one because neither one of these offenses are crazy impressive. Let's go 20-17 Carolina. Panthers win. Panthers cover, obviously, as the underdogs, and give me the under on those points. Andrew, Tom Brady may be back with my Patriots this offseason. So I'm only going to take a second with this. I understand that that's a very clickbaity social media story that I get why that's gotten the traffic that it has. You just drafted Mac Jones in the first round, and you've got Bailey Zappi behind him. Not saying that those quarterbacks are better than Tom Brady, but their combined ages is barely Tom Brady. So, I mean, to me, that doesn't make sense. To me, it makes more sense that Brady goes somewhere else. But I mean, if they want to trade Mac Jones, or maybe even trade Bailey Zappi if you think you can, if they want to turn around, if they don't have faith in Mac Jones and they want to move on from Mac Jones, then I would kind of understand it. If they're not willing to move either of those quarterbacks, I just don't see it happening. But it's a fun story to follow along in the offseason. Let's go to Washington now, where the Cleveland Browns are in town. Cleveland facing the Washington Commanders, the other team in the NFC who's fighting for what will ultimately wind up being that last NFC wildcard spot. The Browns are outside of the playoff picture. They are done. Not really streaking one way or the other, just kind of playing some mediocre football, just like kind of mid on the offensive side, mid on the defensive side. Not really a lot to talk about with the Browns. With Washington, they're a 7-win team. They were in the driver's seat for a wild card spot as recently as a couple of weeks ago. Now all of a sudden they've lost 2 games in a row, and it's a competition now at the bottom part of the NFC playoff picture. I believe Washington only has to lose one of the next 2 games to potentially let somebody else get that last wild card spot. This is the one that, as a Packers fan, I feel like we can't afford for Washington to win this game. Now, luckily, I think they're actually playing a team that's got not a whole heck of a lot to lose, and eventually Baker Mayfield has got to figure, or not Baker Mayfield, Deshaun Watson. Andrew's in the chat talking about Baker Mayfield. It confused me. Deshaun Watson is not a bad football player. Deshaun Watson's actually a very good football player. And eventually he's going to remember, oh crap, I used to be really good at this. Let's go back to doing that again. And we're going to have one of these Deshaun Watson breakout games, which we really haven't seen yet since he came back. And I'm not going to sit here and defend Deshaun Watson, but nobody can sit here and say he was a bad football player because he's not. Like he at a time he was looked at as like a top 5 quarterback. So he's a very good, very talented football player who hasn't shown it yet. I just get this itchy feeling that one of these last couple of games here, he's going to show that. And I kind of get the feeling it happens this week. It just so happens that they happen to be playing a team that my team desperately needs to lose. But again, I don't think Washington has looked overly impressive in their last 2 losses. Granted, tough competition last week, but 2 weeks ago, like they were at home to the Giants and lost by 8 in a low-scoring game. I don't think the offense looks great. I don't think the defense looks great. So I just don't really like it for them this year. And I'm going to grab the Cleveland Browns here in a very moderate upset. I'm going to grab the Browns on the road in Washington to beat the Commanders. On the line, Washington is laying a modest minus 1.5 here as a home favorite. Obviously, since I'm taking them to lose the game, I'll take the plus 1.5 on the Browns against the spread. Total in the game set at 40.5 points. I think it stays under. And look, the score I'm going to give you is more of a blowout score than people like. You're gonna see it, you're gonna hear it, and you're gonna think like that's a blowout. I think this game is close until very late. I really do. This could be like a stat padding thing at the end of the game for Deshaun, what have you. I think this game is like 20 to set. Where are we? 27-10. Like again, that sounds like a blowout because it's 2 possessions, more than 2 possessions. But I do genuinely think this is a low-scoring, tight game until very, very late in the game. But I'm still going to go 27-10. I'm going to take Cleveland to win, take the Browns plus the 1.5, and give me the under on the points. Now, remember how we talked earlier about how the Jacksonville Jaguars now all of a sudden have the inside track to winning the AFC South? Well, look at the matchup that they get, the juiciest of juicy matchups in week 17. They get the Houston Texans. Now, the game is in Houston. Obviously, this is a division matchup, so we're not talking about an absolute layup here. But you couldn't handpick a better opponent to have in the second last week of the season when you're potentially trying to win a division that you didn't think you were going to have a chance to win, let's say a month ago. So the Jags, winners of 3 straight games, 7 wins on the season, and the Jags have the extra rest. The Jags played all the way back on Thursday against the Jets. So the Jags have been resting. They didn't have to go through those Saturday games over Christmas. They played on Thursday. They were Dunskies. They have a lot of rest. So that is a significant advantage here. Now, Houston did play on Saturday, so they do have a day of extra rest than they would normally have. So they do have a bit of extra rest, but the Jags still have the rest advantage in this matchup. They're definitely the better team, winners of 3 straight games. They are on the tail end of back-to-back road games, which is not exactly the ideal situation here. And yes, as Chad points out, I did pick the Jets to win last week. That notwithstanding, look, Jacksonville still, again, in the driver's seat to win this division. I don't think they thought they'd be in this spot. It's one of those situations that I don't think Doug Peterson is going to allow to slip through their fingers. Again, couldn't handpick a better opponent. Give me the Jacksonville Jaguars to get their 4th straight win. This one coming on the road in Houston against the Texans. And Jacksonville over Houston is going to be my bronze pick straight up this week. Jacksonville over Houston, my bronze pick straight up. Now, what I am going to do here is I am going to do something not the smartest, I guess, against the spread. The margin here is only 4.5 points. Houston's a 4.5 point dog at home, which is Vegas trying to tell us that Jacksonville is a 7.5 point better team than Houston because the game's in Houston. So does that pass the smell test? Sort of. Like, Jacksonville's definitely a better team, and I'm not going to make the argument that Houston should be the favorites in this game. But I don't know. There's something about 4.5. This feels like a 3.5 line. So at 4.5, it's just a little spicy for my liking. Not that I think Houston's going to win the game, because picking Houston to win 2 weeks in a row, not the greatest, not the most successful strategy for making picks this season. However, I just don't really want to lay those 4.5 points on Jacksonville. Just feels like too many. I feel like this is a closer football game than that. I'm going to take the plus 4.5 on the hometown Texans. That does insulate me against a potential upset if it did happen. At least I'd grab it against the spread. So I'm going to hedge my bets here. Again, not a great hedge, but Houston does have some rest. They're not, it's not like they're on a short week or anything. So I'm going to take the plus 4.5 in this one. Total in the game set at 43.5 points. Once again, I think this is a pretty darn perfect total. I'm just going to have this sneak over a little bit because, again, I think both of these defenses are susceptible, and I think both of these offenses are going to score their points. So let's take the over here marginally. We're going to go 24-21 in favor of the Jags. Maybe it comes down to a last-second field goal or something like that to get the win. We're going to go 24-21, barely over on the points. Take Jacksonville straight up, but give me the plus 4.5 on Houston. And I will concede, yes, Andrew, you did tell us about Jacksonville since training camp and week 1. I will definitely concede that. Or maybe Houston wants to give the first round pick to Chicago. Yeah, fair enough. All right, we've got 6 games left on the docket here, just over an hour into the stream. So we are going to go to Las Vegas, where the Raiders are going to play host to the San Francisco 49ers, unquestionably one of the hottest teams, if not the hottest team in football right now. Winners of 8 straight games, definitely the hottest team in the NFC. They've clinched their division. They've obviously clinched the playoff spot as well. The Raiders, a 6-win team that are still mathematically alive in the AFC playoff picture. They need 1,000,001 things to go right for them, but they are still technically alive, mathematically alive. You're technically correct, the best kind of correct. So they can still mathematically make the playoffs. They're definitely not going to, but they mathematically can still get there. The Raiders, I liked their chances here a little bit better before I heard about the injury to Denzel Perriman. I wouldn't be surprised if he's shut down for the season. I haven't seen that one way or the other, but Perriman's been one of their better defensive players all season long. He is injured. He will not be playing this week, certainly. And that's a big loss for them on the defensive side. Like, you have to beat this Niners team by keeping their offense in check. That's the only way. If you let this team get into the 20s, chances are they're probably going to beat you. Without one of your best defensive players, I would be exceedingly surprised if that were the case. Definitely on the Niners here one more time. Let's take San Francisco on the road in Las Vegas to beat the Raiders and send them packing in the AFC playoff picture. Now, against the spread, the Raiders are taking +6. And again, another line that I was kind of humming and hawing about before I heard about the Denzel Perriman injury. But since that is the case, I think we're going to have to go ahead and lay the -6 here on San Francisco. You're not going to get the Niners under a touchdown all the time. They've been a very good against the spread team this year. So let's go ahead and lay that -6. And San Francisco -6 is going to be my gold pick against the spread this week. San Francisco -6 points. Total in the game here is 44.5. I do think it climbs over. I don't trust that Raiders defense against a good offense, which is what the Niners have, obviously. So over 44.5 points here in San Francisco. Las Vegas is what I like. Let's go 28-20 in favor of the Niners. Niners win. Niners cover. Give me a slight over on the points. Andrew reiterating there that Doug Peterson gets coach of the year. I think that's probably a pretty good bet. Martin and Andrew both concurring that the Raiders are on life support and need either someone to pull the plug or Dr. Frankenstein. One of the two. Here's a matchup of two teams that I almost have no idea what to do with either of them. The New York Jets on the road in Seattle taking on the Seahawks. This is a battle of two 7-win teams who are both still mathematically alive in the playoffs, but neither one of them, it's like Arizona and Atlanta. Like neither one of them wants to win. Like the Jets have lost 4 straight games. The Seahawks have lost 3. The Jets will come into this game with the rest advantage, having played all the way back on Thursday, but Seattle did play on Saturday, so they will at least be a little extra rested there as well. So when you look at it, it's two teams who combined have lost the last 7 times they've hit a football field, but they're both still mathematically alive. Keebs makes a great point here. Geno Smith going up against his old team. The Jets have a lot of situations like that where they have quarterbacks, former quarterbacks of theirs going up against them. It seems to happen fairly frequently. And in the next year or two, probably going to happen with Zach Wilson again. The reason that I'm going to lean the Jets in this matchup is not only because like they were, again, Vegas doesn't even really know which way they want to go with this game, because just yesterday, I think Seattle was a 1-point favorite. Now they're 2.5-point dogs. Like it's all over the place, right? I think the one difference here for the Jets is going to be the return of Mike White. It looks like he's going to be the starter, and it looks like Zach Wilson is not even going to be active for this game, which means it's Mike White and Joe Flacco as the number 1 and number 2 quarterbacks. That was just announced, I believe, a little bit earlier today. I think I saw that on Schefter's Twitter that Mike White was going to be good to go, and Mike White upticks this Jets offense. He definitely does, and Geno over the last few weeks has not looked like the same Geno Smith from earlier this season, where he was putting up a ton of fantasy points. It was one of the, like probably leading the way for, one of the comeback players of the year, what have you. Doesn't look like the same guy to me. I think the Seattle Seahawks are a marginally better team, but with that quarterback change and with the uptick that it actually brings to their offense, I'm going to go with the Jets here. I like New York on the road in Seattle to get the win over the Seahawks. New York beats Seattle. So obviously, since I like New York to win, they're laying 2.5 points here as a road favorite. I like them to win. It's a small price to pay. Let's lay the -2.5, even though I totally get it if you're going the other direction on this, because this is a genuine coin flip game. It really is. This game could literally, this is on the edge of a knife. So either way you want to go with this game, I totally get it. The one thing that I do feel fairly strong about in this one is taking the under on the points. It's a very beatable number at 42.5, but I think this is a race to 20. I think one team gets there. I don't think the other one does. So I like the under to hit in this matchup. Let's go under 42.5 points in New York, Seattle. Let's go 20-16 in favor of the Jets. Jets win, Jets cover, and give me the under on the points. 4 games left. Marquee matchup for this guy, the Minnesota Vikings on the road in Green Bay to take on the Packers. Late December, early January in Lambeau. You cannot beat it for atmosphere. And obviously, divisional matchup. These two teams, I think, probably in the opposite spaces to where we thought they would be to this point in the year. I think everybody thought at this point Green Bay would have wrapped up the division and it would be Minnesota fighting for their playoff lives. It has obviously inverted where Minnesota has clinched the division and it's Green Bay kind of on life support for a playoff spot. However, Green Bay, winners of 3 straight games, Minnesota, winners of 2 straight games, and will come into this game with the rest advantage having played on Saturday. Andrew in the chat has immediately thrown down the gauntlet saying, if Green Bay beats Minnesota, I'll wear my I Love Breakfast t-shirt. Say no more. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. I wasn't going to be a homer. I was actually genuinely going to take the Minnesota Vikings to end Green Bay's season. Maybe this blows my credibility completely. And if it does, so be it. Andrew wants to put the I Love Breakfast shirt on the line. I have to do it. I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers to get the win, keep the pressure on the Washington Commanders, who, again, from earlier in the show, I have losing at home, getting upset by Cleveland. Keep that pressure on Washington. I got Green Bay getting to 8 wins, leapfrogging the Commanders with 1 week left to go. I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers. This is all you, Andrew. This is my pick for you because you can't have the I Love Breakfast shirt come in between me and can't do it. When the I Love Breakfast shirt is on the line, you do whatever it takes to see it. So let's take the Green Bay Packers. On the line, the Packers are actually laying 3 points in this game. And this is one of those situations, too, where, look, I think it was Chad talked about it a little bit earlier. Teams are going to start resting players. I don't think Minnesota is jonesing. Well, I mean, they won it, obviously. I don't know if they can. I think they're still mathematically alive for potentially getting the number 1 seed, but they've already won the division. They know they're probably going to be playing on Super Wildcard Weekend. This is one of those situations where you could conceivably see the Vikings potentially rest some players. I think that lays in a little bit to Green Bay being 3-point favorites in this game. So I like Green Bay to win. I'm going to take that -3 on the Packers as well. Games at home in Lambeau. Obviously, they love playing in Lambeau. Let's go ahead and lay the 3 points. Total in the game set at 47.5 points. I still think both of these teams are going to score their points. I think both of them get above 24. So let's go ahead and grab the over here. Over 47.5 points in Minnesota Green Bay. Let's go Packers 33, Vikings 27. An exciting quintessential NFC North matchup. Packers win, Packers cover, and give me the over. Let's see a couple things in here before we move on. Martin, Vikings wouldn't like to lose their spot to the 49ers. They could have helped the G-men with a loss, but no. So here's the thing, is like we're 2 weeks out. You really can't start. You can start trying using like analytical models to kind of project playoff matchups. But at this point, it's kind of, it's almost a fool's errand, because it's going to change so much in the next 2 weeks. So whether you are a team that gets the number 2 seed or the number 4 seed or the number 3. You have no idea who you're going to be playing, especially in the NFC where it's so tight. So I don't think they're too worried about that right now. They know they're going to the dance. Their focus, you have to think, is going to be on 2 weeks' time. Chad says Green Bay 40, Minnesota 7. All right. I'll take that. All right. 3 games left to talk about here. Let's go to the Battle of Los Angeles, which is the name of a terrible ripoff mockbuster movie made by the folks at the Asylum. The Los Angeles Rams on the road, quote unquote, against the Chargers in LA. The Rams obviously outside of the playoff picture. They're not even looking in. They were uninvited from the party weeks ago and have since left the premises. The Chargers make their way into the playoffs with that win last night against the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, the Chargers are going to be coming in here on a short week, and I did briefly flirt with the idea of taking the Rams to win this game outright because, again, the Rams have no reason to want to lose football games anymore. They don't have their first round pick, so it's not like they can improve their positioning on draft night. So the Rams, I think, desperately want to close out this season with wins. But without Aaron Donald, sure, they just put up 51 points, but it was against a completely inept Denver Broncos team. So let's not look too deeply into that, I don't think. And yes, the Chargers could conceivably be another one of those teams that could be resting players heading in. Like, would I be shocked if Justin Herbert didn't play this week? No. Would I be shocked if Justin Herbert or like Austin Eckler or Derwin James, even though a lot of people are yelling that he should be suspended, would I be shocked if these players didn't play this week or next week, like one of those 2 games? Would I be shocked? Probably not. But I think the Chargers are probably looking more towards next week to resting players. They know they're not going to win the division. So they know they're going to be on the road. They know they're going to be playing next week. Like, rest everybody in week 18, but like week 17 feels a little bit early, but the door is certainly open that they could do something like that this week. So that's why I kind of briefly thought, oh, Rams, that's a good upset pick. But genuinely, Chargers are playing good football right now. They've won 3 straight. I think we're just going to stick with the better team here, and that is the LA Chargers. So let's go ahead and take the Chargers at home to beat the Rams. On the line, though, the Chargers are laying -6.5. That's too many points. Definitely too many points for the Battle of LA and the potential of resting players. They don't need to blow a team out. They don't really need to win or lose. Really, like, what happens is basically inconsequential for their future at this point. 6.5 is just too many for me to lay. So I'm going to go ahead and take the points here with the LA Rams. It also insulates me against a potential upset. Total in the game set at 40.5 points. I don't expect a high scoring game here. I don't think this is going to be a very good football game, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. So I'm going to grab something like 17-14 for the Chargers. So I'm going to take the Chargers to win, but take the Rams to cover and give me a solid under on the points. Let's see. I think resting players doesn't work personally. I think teams do that. They lose motivation from that and lose in the playoffs. It's a double-edged sword, right? Like it really is a double-edged sword. You can use it to your advantage in a big way, especially if you had a bye early in the season. Like, if you're one of these teams that had a bye week in week 5, 6, 7, something like that, it's really to your advantage because you've been playing football for 10 to 12 straight weeks. So we definitely, like, in a case like that, I think it's worth it for the rest. In a case where, like, you just had your bye week in week 14, then it's one of those things where it's like, well, we just had a week off like 3 weeks ago. So it doesn't really make sense. So it's a double-edged sword. You got to be careful how you use it. That's for sure. Let's see. Battle of LA was the name of a Rage Against the Machine album too. Oh, that's cool. Andrew says he thinks the Chargers could be a playoff sleeper. Andrew also says, I think the Rams will regret giving up that draft pick to Detroit. Keebs jumps in, though, and says they got their Super Bowl, worked out for both teams. Good trade. I think that's probably fairly accurate. All right, we're just under an hour 20 with 2 games left to go. Let's see if we can get them in under the hour 30 mark. The Pittsburgh Steelers, winners of 2 straight games on the road in Baltimore, taking on a Ravens team that has already, of course, clinched a playoff spot. And it seems more likely than not that we could see Lamar come back this week. This game has to mean something to both of these teams because technically Pittsburgh is still alive. Baltimore is still alive for the division. Like Cincinnati certainly hasn't clinched that division yet. Pittsburgh's still trying to fight to get into the postseason. They're kind of on life support a little bit, but still mathematically alive. This matters to both of these football teams. And obviously, since it's a division matchup, they know each other very well. But where this falls for me is I don't know that Lamar is coming back. And I don't know what Lamar is going to look like when he comes back. If Lamar had come back last week and played at least fairly well, and I knew he was healthy and I knew he was ready coming into this game, I'd be all over Baltimore in this one. I really would. Because I think top to bottom, they're a better football team. However, since I don't know that, and since if Lamar does come back, it's going to be his first game back against a division rival that's predicated on defense, predicated on a pass rush. He might be on a pitch count. He might not look great. I think I'm going to have to go ahead and grab the Steelers in this one. So, yeah, that's a tough one. That's a very tough game. And obviously, Vegas doesn't really know which way to go with it either because all Baltimore is favored by is the home field advantage of 3 points. I'm going to go ahead and grab the Steelers here to get the upset. Again, division game, anything can happen. Give me the Steelers on the road in Baltimore to upset the Ravens. So on the line, obviously, give me the +3 on Pittsburgh. Keebs asks Lamar back this week. They're kind of taking it day by day, but it seems like this would be a good week for him to come back. He comes back, plays this week. Maybe he only plays half the game in week 18 if it winds up being a meaningless game for them to then go and play on Super Wildcard Weekend. I think he has to play to some degree this week. But again, even if he does, what's he going to look like? Is he going to be limited? Is he going to be on a pitch count? What's the offense going to look like with Lamar back for the first time in weeks and weeks? So there's too much uncertainty for me around Baltimore. So I think we're going to go ahead and grab Pittsburgh and obviously give me the +3 on the Steelers. Total in this game set at 36. It's the lowest total of the week, and I still think it's going to go in that direction. So again, the upside of both of these offenses is not fantastic. I think defenses rule the day in this matchup. Let's go under 36 points. And as a matter of fact, Pittsburgh, Baltimore under 36 is my bronze pick on the totals this week. Under 36 points in Pittsburgh, Baltimore, my bronze pick. Let's go like 16-13 in favor of the Steelers. Last second field goal gets the job done for them. Pittsburgh wins, Pittsburgh covers, and give me the under on the points. And here we go, folks. The marquee matchup of week 17. The Buffalo Bills on the road in Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. This has been, I believe, flexed into this spot. I believe. I mean, this is, again, preview of the AFC Championship game. I don't think anybody would be surprised. If this was the AFC title game, Buffalo winners of 6 straight, Cincinnati winners of 7 straight. Both of these teams on absolute fire right now. Both of them looking to keep momentum. This is what we're looking for. Buffalo has, of course, already clinched the playoff spot and the division. Cincinnati has clinched a playoff spot. They're fighting to clinch the division. The Bills are coming into this one on the tail end of back-to-back road games. I cannot wait for this football game. Buffalo just played in Chicago last week, so obviously they didn't exactly have an iron sharpens iron situation there. Chicago is nowhere near competition for the Buffalo Bills. Meanwhile, this game is huge competition, obviously, for both of these teams. Now, you got Cincinnati, who last week were in New England. Week before that, Cincinnati was in Tampa Bay. Slightly better competition. Not off the charts competition, obviously, but I mean, slightly better competition than Chicago. This is one of those games that I almost feel bad giving a pick for. Like, this just feels like one of those games where it's like, I just want to sit back and watch the great football game, because that's exactly what this is going to be. This is going to be one of the best games of the season, and I cannot wait to watch it. I'm going to bite on the Cincinnati Bengals here. There's something so special about both of these teams, but man, Joe Burrow, when those lights are brightest, Joe Burrow seems to always come up with something special. And I think that's going to be the case here again. I love Josh Allen. I love the Buffalo Bills. They're going to go far in the postseason. I think Cincinnati catches them on this one. Let's take the Bengals at home in the very, very, very moderate upset. Let's go Bengals over Buffalo. Once again, that whole tail end of back-to-back road games thing might be playing on me a little bit, but I'm going to bite on it. So like I mentioned, Cincinnati are moderate underdogs here at home. They're taking plus 1.5. Again, wouldn't be shocked if this was the AFC Championship game. I'll take the plus 1.5 on Cincinnati. Total in the game set at 49.5. Even though these are such dynamic offenses, this feels like it's going to be a very closely contested game. Two good coaches as well. I think I got to take the under on this, and it's obviously not the biggest total of the week, but it's one of the biggest totals of the week. This feels like a really good number. I'm going to lean under on it. Maybe psychologically, because it starts with a 4. I'm like, boom, it's high 4 under, but I'm going to lean under on it. It's not a great play, but it's a lean. We're going to go under 49.5 points in Buffalo, Cincinnati. Let's go 24-23. Cincinnati wins an incredible game. Cincinnati wins. Cincinnati covers. Give me just barely an under on the points. That's how we're going to go in the marquee game of the week. Pen. Come on, man. All right. There you go, folks. Those are my picks for week 17 in the NFL. We're going to go over the platinum, gold, silver, and bronze picks straight up against the spread and over under here with you one more time. Straight up, I like Kansas City over Denver as my platinum pick. Gold pick, Dallas over Tennessee. Silver pick, Detroit over Chicago. And bronze pick, Jacksonville over Houston. Against the spread, my platinum pick is the Philadelphia Eagles minus 7 points. My gold pick, the San Francisco 49ers minus 6 points. My silver pick, the Tennessee Titans plus 10.5. And my bronze pick, the Carolina Panthers plus 3. And on the totals, my platinum pick, Detroit and Chicago over. That's over 52.5. Denver, Kansas City. That's going to go under 44.5 points. That's my gold pick. Silver pick, Indianapolis and the New York Giants under 39.5. And the bronze pick, Pittsburgh and Baltimore under 36. There you go, folks. Just in under the wire of an hour and a half. I want to thank everybody once again, as I have 16 times in a row, now 17 times in a row. Thank you so much for taking the time to check out the show, to check out the picks, to contribute in the live chat. My regulars, as always, I appreciate every single one of you. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster underscore guy on Twitter. Fueled as always by the incredible folks at at Nerds. I was about to say New Year's at Nerd Tees. Thank you again, Andrew. You got me a second time. And to Andrew's point, he said Happy New Year in the chat, and I do want to extend a happy wishes for New Year for everybody that watches and listens to this show. And I will see you again in the final week of the regular season, week number 18, where there will likely still be some playoff implications to be had. We'll see you next week. Oh, there you go, folks. That was a marathon session for me. It's the first time in a little bit that we've gone over the hour and a half. But you know what? We had plenty of fun things to talk about. So I understand it. I want to send you out of here on this. So, first of all, I want to ask, like I always do, what did you think of the picks? What picks did you love? What picks did you absolutely hate? I want to ask you that every single week. But I threw up a question on Twitter that I'm interested in getting people's thoughts on. So, if we go and we find this. So what it was if you were asked to build the best NFL roster possible, comprised only of pandemic era draft picks. So you're looking at people who were drafted in either 2020, 2021, or 2022. So the last 3 drafts. If you were to comprise an NFL roster, the best NFL roster you could make with just those draftees, who would be your top pick on offense and who would be your top pick on defense? I'm going to give you a few minutes. I want you to really think about that. For the folks in the live chat, it's going to take you a second or two to get it. For the folks watching the VOD, if you're still watching the VOD at this point, let me know in the comments section. I'm really interested to hear people's thoughts on this. Again, from the last 3 drafts, the pandemic era drafts, if you were building an NFL roster, who would be your number 1 pick on offense and number 1 pick on defense? If you're trying to build the best NFL roster possible, give me 1 offensive and 1 defensive pick. While people are potentially thinking about that, Kat, who was not in the chat here, gave me actually an excellent, a complete breakdown of the entirety of the team that they would choose. And there's actually, I mean, there's a number of really awesome picks in here. And I just want to talk about who I personally would take as my top offensive choice and my top defensive choice, just based on what I'm looking at here. So, like, again, you got to build a whole team here, but just based on what I can see here, and again, shout out to Kat for kind of putting this together. What I would do is on the offensive side, I'd probably want to build my offense. I'd probably want to build the offense around Justin Jefferson. Like that's a tough one not to go with. Like I want to go quarterback there, but I think, man, that's a guy that is just a Calvin Johnson freak of nature. So if I'm building my offense, starting with Justin Jefferson as the core part of the offense, I think I'd have to bite on that. And on the defensive side, Chase Young Chase Young would be a better choice if we'd seen him play more. Like, and that's no disrespect to him, but he'd be a great choice if we've seen him play more. Uh I think it's awfully tough not to go Micah Parsons on the defensive side because that dude is just an absolute stud. I think you can put him anywhere in the front seven. You can put him on the edge. You can put him in pass coverage. You can put him at middle linebacker if you needed to. I don't think there's anywhere in the front seven that he's going to be in over his head. So while it would be tempting to go with a pass rusher, I'm going to kind of do both. And I think Micah Parsons would have to be the defensive player that I would bite on. Andrew's in the chat there, goes top pick Joe Burrow on offense and on defense Chase Young. It would be awfully tough to go against either of those picks. Like I kind of love both of those. And again, so tempting to go quarterback, but I think I got to go with Jay Jettas there on offense and grab Micah Parsons on the defensive side. So look, I'll give anybody in the live chat if the next minute or two if they want to chip in on that. So I will begin my graceful exit this week. Again, thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch the show live, to check in the live chat, which is always fantastic. But look, we had I think top concurrent was like 12 this stream, so obviously we had a lot of lurkers. Love my lurkers as always. I've just loved doing this show live. And I know I've said this the last probably couple of weeks in a row, but doing this show live has brought a whole different energy to it for me. And I've genuinely, sincerely loved doing it. Now, I'm a little low energy here towards the end because I didn't actually eat supper before I started. So I'm going to go and do that now. But thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time to watch and listen. Feel free to chip in on that question from the pandemic era drafts. Let me know who would be your top pick on offense and your top pick on defense. Andrew even chimes in and says Jake Bailey on special teams. Gotta love it. That's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we will see you again for week 18 picks, the last full length live stream for the NFL show this season. But of course, the live streams will continue throughout the playoffs. See you next week.